Welcome everybody to the second episode of One Deck One Month featuring Photon Galaxy. Thank you all for joining me here in the second episode. And like I went into detail about in the first episode, I am currently holding a fundraiser over the course of this series. So if you'd like to donate to our charity of choice for this month, which is the Clean Air Task Force, more information about that down in the description. And I also talked about it in more detail in the first episode as well. I'll leave a link to that up in the top right of the description also. And of course, a big thank you to anybody that has donated or who plans to donate in the future. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you very much. You're supporting a great cause. Now let's go ahead and move on to the main subject of the video, of course, which is Photon Galaxy. My journey with this deck over the course of a month, playing it exclusively at locals and on the online ladder on YG Omega, trying to make this deck as competitive as I possibly can. Taking this rogue deck, right, and pushing it as far as I think we can take it with the cards that we currently have available to us right now. And speaking of new cards, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just to quickly recap week one, we ended up going 3-1 at locals, which is pretty solid. And somebody can fact check me if they would like to, but I think 3-1, despite the fact that we had a bye to get that record, but 3-1 I think might be the best record we've ever had with this deck in the series, right? We already did it one time in the past. I think every time in that series we ended up going 2-2 or worse. So, I mean, this has got to be a sign of good things, right? And if it's not, I don't know what is. But 3-1, 15 store credit in the bag. Great start, I must say. So that was week one, and that obviously brings us to week two where we are right now. And this week's main goal is going to be focused on identifying problems with the deck. We'll worry about fixing those problems next week, but right now we're just trying to focus all of our testing, all of our matches tonight, what we'll play at locals, on just trying to figure out what kind of problems are we running into repeatedly. Now, speaking of my streams that happened on Wednesday and Thursday, we had a record of 1-8. Now, I know that sounds bad, and that's because it is. But I'm not going to sit here and attribute all of the losses to the deck itself. If you were there watching the streams, you know that a good chunk of those losses were definitely on my own fault. No fault of the deck, and I definitely played pretty poorly, and that definitely attributed to a few losses. So I'll get that out of the way. I don't want to blame the deck 100%. But yeah, it was a bit of a rough week for the deck on the ladder and for me myself. But one thing I specifically noticed is the deck's lack of ability to consistently put up a big end board. We can consistently end on Soul Flare number 90 or maybe a rank 4 number 90, but very rarely can we get to a board that has multiple solid interruptions. I'm talking Soul Flare number 90, number 38, or Felgrand, right? A really solid end board that actually has some meat to it, right? That's going to be hard for our opponent to try to get through, and that our opponent will have to, play through more than just one noteworthy interruption, right? So that is one problem, and I do have a couple ideas on how to fix that, and I'll talk about that briefly here in a moment. And the other thing is this deck sometimes cannot play through a single interruption, which is obviously a big problem. We can't afford to have a certain play get ashed and we pass, or something get impermed and we pass. And I think this is mainly due to two reasons. The first reason being that this deck is not consistent. It lacks quite a bit of starters. I think the list we were playing before in week one, I think had maybe like 9 starters, I think. Yeah, like 9 starters, maybe 10 if you're being generous. So I made some changes to the deck to try to slightly tweak that, to help us get more access to more engine cards and more extenders. So if one of our play lines gets shut down, we potentially have the opportunity to go to a different line and keep extending past that one interruption, giving us a fighting chance. Now, the other thing that attributes to not being able to play through multiple interruptions is still my, lack of familiarity with some of the combo lines. I feel like I've noticed, especially on my stream, there were some plays where I kind of missequenced them to really play super hard into the one hand trap, and that ultimately resulted in me ending my turn. So we got to be a little bit more mindful in how we're playing out certain hands, how we're using all of our various cards to search certain cards, right? We don't want to create sort of like choke points for us. We want to leave ourselves with as much options as we possibly can. So, if we do play A and our opponent has insert card here, we still have a follow-up play here that we've made sure that we had in advance if that was going to be the outcome, right? If our opponent impermed our Galaxy Wizard, right? We have a Vanisher in hand, which can get us a Galaxy Eyes, which gets us into Galaxy Photon Dragon, which gets us another card, right? And we can still play, right? Grab a Galaxy Soldier or whatever. So those are two things that I think we can do to try to fix those problems. One more so in the deck build itself, and the other part sort of like on me as the player. Now, I will go ahead and put the deck list up on the screen here for you guys to see. This is basically what the list I'm going to play tonight is going to look like. The only thing I've done is cut a Galaxy Summoner, and I think the other card was a Hand Trap. Yeah, it was a Hand Trap to fit in 2 Small World. This is a card a lot of people have been suggesting me to play in this deck. I've never really been a huge fan of Small World. I'll get that out of the way right now. I don't really know what it is about this card. I just really don't like it that much, but when worst comes to worst, if we can turn any given card in our hand to a Wizard or a Galaxy Soldier, right, we'll have to take it, or maybe any other extender in our deck. So I think we can even turn Ash into Galaxy Soldier, and a lot of other cards can be turned into Wizard via the Galaxy Soldier, and I've also put Nibiru in the main deck. As much as I've been like hating Nibiru in this deck, I put it back in to act as a Small World bridge, because I think we can bridge pretty much anything through Nibiru to anything in our deck. And I didn't want to play Valor because I feel like Valor is just a worse imperm right now. It can get called by, it can proc Thrust, and it has 0 attack, which ends up conflicting with, I think, Wizard. 0 attack and defense, which conflicts with Wizard, Brave, and Soldier. So I figured I'd just go with Nibiru there and just kind of call it there. The extra deck I did put in Felgrand and got rid of Cypher X. I feel like this card is a big nothing sandwich sometimes, and I rather would just make a card that's an actual interruption, and Felgrand's a pretty good one. And in the side deck, I ended up putting in D-Barriers because, you know, if we're going to get D-Barriered, I want to D-Barrier my opponent back. I want to be able to tell my opponent, no, you can't play this turn, and we OTK him back next turn. And one thing I've also been noticing too is when we get hit with these really high impact cards, right, like Lava Golem, Nibiru, Dark Ruler, whatever, I want to have very high impact floods set in the back row so that if our opponent is stopping us from doing anything, we are making sure that we stop them from doing anything with either a Gozen Match or a D-Barrier or maybe a Book of Eclipse, right? And then the idea is that next turn, we just summon a big dragon and we punch through their board and reduce their life points to 0. I've also added in a copy of Change of Heart because I really couldn't figure out what other good going second cards I wanted to play in the deck, and I thought to myself, maybe we have enough going second cards as is in that of Evenly, the Book of Eclipse. So I was like, do I need to really fit in 3 Nibiru on top of that, right? That's like 9 going second cards. I'll just throw in the Change of Heart because we can take a lot of Xyz monsters right now. Those are very heavily played, and we can turn those into Zeus, right, to threaten a board, and it's just overall a pretty nice card, right? So can't complain too much about that. And I think the build is looking pretty solid. So that's like my ideology behind why I've done what I've done with the deck list. And I think when we get back later or post locals analysis, I'll talk to you guys about some of the cool ideas that we could possibly try to implement to this deck to make it more of a real deck, I guess. I don't know. Maybe real deck's not the word that I want to use, but there are a couple little extra deck pieces that we can throw in, a little couple of gimmicky, unfair things the deck can do. I'm looking at you, Photon Time Stop. You guys might already know what I'm talking about, but we'll elaborate more on that when I get back. But it is 5:12 right now, and I still have to get ready for locals and got to head out of here. Make sure we get there on time. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys are excited to see how we perform. I've never played Small World in this deck, but I figured, you know what? If we want more starter cards, what other option do I have right now if we don't have Jumper other than to play Small World? So hopefully it doesn't screw me over tonight, and hopefully I'm able to quickly remember the bridges I need to get to the cards I need to, because I don't want to waste time thinking, okay, what if I, have to banish this, or can I banish this, right? We don't want that happening. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. I'll see you guys at locals.
No, you don't know what this is. Oh, I do have.
Oh yeah, no, that's not good. That's not good.
I have not pulled an Aldi in months, unfortunately. All right, so we just finished round 1. We ended up playing against Black Wings, and we took the match 2-1. We lost game 1 very, very quickly because we opened up unplayable, which I think it was like double talents and brave. It seems like there's been another game or two where I bricked on a hand that had both talents and brave in it, which I find is funny. And especially since I just recently cut brave down to 1 from 2 to kind of avoid those things. But it is what it is. My only play was literally make Soul Flare and pass. Yeah, nothing too crazy about that matchup, honestly. The Book of Eclipse in game 3 was really clutch. Ended up using it in draw phase because I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but if you Book of Eclipse in the draw phase, if anything flips up in the end phase, your opponent doesn't draw. I've heard that. That's why I did it in the draw phase. And I had another Book of Eclipse that came in clutch to actually dodge a targeting negate effect that he had on my rank 4. And if I didn't have that, I probably would have lost, honestly, because we had a lot of things to clear. And thankfully, we still played C62. It came in clutch to very easily clear the entire board, Afterglow, and just make it number 90 in main phase 2. So everything worked out really good in games 2 and 3. That unfortunate brick game 1, it is what it is, but I don't think we'll go over that match. I think it was pretty straightforward. I'll throw in little snippets down here as I'm talking, but yeah, we're 1-0, and hopefully I don't think we'll get any buys this tournament, since there are a lot more people here this time, and we have over 40 players. So very, very excited to see what we end up playing against in the next round. So we just finished up round 2, and that was a very, very fast match. We ended up losing 2-0 to Branded Despia. It's a matchup that I feel like we've done okay against before, but when you have a Bestial and Nibiru game 1 and Nibiru game 2, plus Super Poly, which are all just generally blowout cards against their deck and end board, really not much we can do, especially since I didn't draw a D-barrier for his Branded Fusion play. I had number 90 through Nibiru and Soul Flare to be able to stop Eluber at least, but he had the Super Poly and already had established Mirror Jade and had the Nibiru on field, and we were already down 2,000 from activating the Trance, which was the only reason we could play through the Nibiru in the first place. So, like, it is what it is. There's really not much to go over in depth in that match. It was really just, honestly, not even close in, like, every aspect. So, like I said, Nibiru and and a Bestial game 1, which honestly I kind of played pretty hard into, which is my fault. But the Nibiru ended up being, I think, the bigger factor. And then game 2, he had Nibiru, you could play through it, but then Super Poly cleaned up the end board. So it is what it is. We are 1-1. Still plenty of opportunity to be able to win some credit, which is good. So we'll keep updating you guys after round 3 and then again after round 4. All right, so we just wrapped up our round 3 match. We ended up playing against Kashtira, and it wasn't too bad. We did lose game 1 pretty easily. Didn't open the greatest hand, and he did have, I think, Nibiru. Yeah, I think we were able to play through it just a little bit, but it wasn't like enough at the end of the day. Actually had to use the talents to take his Nibiru and make a Soul Flare with it. It was kind of cool to realize that I could have made an Ahashima with it, but I think I used Trance already, so I couldn't do that. But it was a really cool match. I think we'll probably go over that one, and depending on how the 4th round is, we'll probably go over that one too. But yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about. There were some really cool interactions. C62 was definitely the MVP of that match, and yeah, Book of Eclipse was also a thing that game too. But yeah, we'll go over it in more detail here in just a minute. But we are 2-1. So hopefully we can win out and match our 3-1 record of last week. All right, so let's go ahead and go over our round 3 match against Kashtira. This is, I think, my first time actually playing against Kashtira at a local, so it's definitely an interesting experience. This match, though, I think is going to showcase some really interesting things and how certain cards in our deck actually excel in this particular matchup, as well as some of the side deck cards I chose to put into the deck, how those are going to perform very, very well also. So let's go ahead and hop right into this one. My opponent actually went first, and to my surprise, they opened up pretty much unplayable. They have set 3, and I think the only cards in their hand are Rise Heart and Nibiru. I was expecting a lot more than that. I was expecting like maybe an Arise Heart with plenty of materials underneath, or maybe they go for the Zone Lock. I have no idea, right? So we got off pretty lucky there that they opened up. Not super great. I lead with Pot of Prosperity, and I decided to go ahead and banish 6 instead of 3. I probably did this because my hand was probably closer to being unplayable than playable. If I'm already playable, right, if we pause here, yeah, my hand looks pretty unplayable. I have a copy of Talons, 2 copies of Galaxy Trance, and Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon alongside Expedition, so we are definitely unplayable right now, and we go ahead and reveal a full 6 cards. Again, if we were already playable, I would definitely reveal 3. So we end up revealing Afterglow, Galaxy Eyes, Nibiru, Summoner, another Prosperity, and I think that might be Photon Orbital. Yeah, so I'm like, all right, we're definitely not taking all of these. Oh, that's not Galaxy Eyes. That is a copy of Thrasher. So we went and special summon Thrasher, and I thought that was Galaxy Eyes in my hand, but it's Advancer. So yeah, with obviously just Advancer, we obviously aren't doing anything. But when I see the Thrasher get revealed off the top, I'm like, okay, now we have access to a rank 4 line. And, you know, if worse comes to worse, we can use Trance to, like, bring out either Advancer or Thrasher and go into, like, a Starlight Photon Blast Dragon, right? Definitely better than nothing. So we go ahead and special Thrasher, special Advancer, and we can go ahead and use the Galaxy Photon Dragon to attempt to search. And my opponent is quick with the Imperm there. So now I'm like, okay, there's really a lot less things that I can do now. But we definitely still have a cool line, and this is an interesting way. I've almost never really thought of using Galaxy Trance, especially in situations like this where you start your plays off without using your normal summon. And this is one of the reasons why I like playing Photon Thrasher so much, is because, you know, with Road in the deck, we are playing technically 2 copies, and obviously with Prosperity, we can see it a little bit more sooner. But when you start Thrasher into Advancer, or you start Thrasher into Vanisher, especially with a higher count of Trance in the deck, it opens you up to this really cool line where you can actually Trance out whatever material detached. Make sure if it's you start with Advancer that you don't detach Advancer, because you can't special summon Advancer off of the Trance after you summon it from hand that turn. So you want to make sure you either detach like the Advancer or the Thrasher, because those can be brought back. But I'm basically using this as a way to get Galaxy Wizard out of my deck to be able to then add back off of a Soul Flare Dragon, normal summon right, and try to keep playing. So that is a really cool line that you could do potentially there. And I had the Expedition in hand too, so we had more plays. But my opponent does have Nibiru, so I was like, all right, fair enough. And this is going to be one of the times where I can actually end up playing through the Nibiru. And this is why I like Triple Tactics Talent so much. It does really help the deck be able to play through hand traps and interruptions. And I'm using it in a way that I don't think I've ever used Talents before. Taking my opponent's Nibiru turn 1 to be able to link into Soul Flare. We haven't normal summoned yet. So I end up normal summoning the Galaxy Wizard here. And I wanted to go ahead and increase its level. But my opponent has a Book of Eclipse, which is very, very unfortunate. So I'm forced to just go into the battle phase there, swinging for 2,000 and pass turn. Another thing that I could have also done there was actually link the token and, yeah, the Nibiru token and Nibiru the Primal Being into Bujinki Ahashima for Anixi's play also. So maybe that's something. Well, I don't think I actually could have done that there. I didn't have any level 8s in hand. So end phase, obviously, the monster that was booked with Eclipse is going to flip up. I draw into Ash, and my opponent is going to normal summon the Rise Heart, and they're basically going to be able to start accessing their engine with a very good draw for turn for them, which ends up being Birth, and they're able to, you know, banish a Fenrir from deck and Birth it back, and then that's going to search Unicorn. They go ahead and use Unicorn here, and I do Ash it, because Unicorn is probably going to get them Theosis and some of their better extenders. So I decided to hit that with an Ash, knowing that my opponent could use either the Unicorn or the Fenrir on Resolution to banish a card from extra deck or field. And luckily for us, my opponent actually ended up doing neither of those things. Definitely a big mistake on their behalf, but they're also still relatively new to the game and to the deck from what I understand. So it can be pretty easy to miss a lot of those things. So they're going to go into Big Eye, and Big Eye is going to take the Soul Flare Dragon, and they're going to go battle phase, attack with Fenrir, banish the Wizard, and they try to attack with the number 11 Big Eye. Remind them, you know, you can't attack with Big Eye when you use that effect to take, and he swings on the Soul Flare and passes turn. And he actually drops me pretty low in life points here, because we had already used Trance the previous turn, and we just took a little bit of damage there. It was 24 from the Fenrir and 2,000 from the Soul Flare. So that's 44 plus another 2,000. That's 6,400 damage, leaving me with just around 1,600 life points, which means I cannot use the Galaxy Trance that is currently in my hand, which is really, really, really unfortunate. And honestly thought if I could have used the Galaxy Trance, I'd be in a good situation, because I think I just drew, I think I just drew Galaxy Eyes. So my play there would have been to activate Trance, had I had enough life points, and bring out Advancer and like a Wizard, right, going to Blast Dragon that would summon the Galaxy Eyes in my hand, Expedition, bring out Afterglow, and we basically just go for game right then and there into his field. Because I don't think we would have needed to activate a monster effect. Well, the only monster effect we would have needed to activate was the Blast Dragon, but Blast Dragon would protect our other valuable targets from the Fenrir, right? He would have to choose to banish the Blast Dragon, because I believe Fenrir targets, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so we would have probably been able to OTK there had we had enough life points. So let's go ahead and fast forward and take a look at game 2. All right, so here we are in game 2. My opening hand is Thrasher, Advancer, Small World, Dimension Barrier, and one other card. I think that might be Galaxy Wizard. So I start by special summoning Thrasher, then special summoning Vanisher. Again, I love opening hands like this. It almost honestly makes me want to play a second Thrasher and maybe another Vanisher. I'm already playing 2, but Vanisher definitely is a card that can brick, and so is Thrasher, so maybe I should just leave the ratios as is. So we go into Galaxy Photon Dragon, and we detach the Thrasher, and I go ahead and immediately grab a copy of Galaxy Trance to kind of be like our plan B when it comes to getting hit with Nibiru. I normal summon Galaxy Wizard, and we're going to go ahead and tribute him off to go ahead and search for a Galaxy card. So we also have Galaxy Eyes in hand as well. Well, we search that off the Vanisher. And my opponent looks to only have a copy of Bell as their hand trap. Looks like they've got Fenrir and Terraforming and Pot of Prosperity also. So they opened up pretty decent. And moving on from this point, I actually end up using the Small World to reveal Galaxy Eyes in my hand, Galaxy Soldier in deck, which has allowed me to get into a Photon Emperor, which is going to make this Galaxy Soldier play just that much more impactful. Except I do mess up my Chain Links here. I was a little careless, admittedly, because he is able to Bell my Photon Emperor, which does hurt quite a bit as to what my end board could have been. Because if I would have just done Chainlink 1 Soldier, Chainlink 2 Emperor, Chainlink 3 Galaxy Photon Dragon, he would not have had a chance to Bell, and I could have searched Summoner, got the additional normal summon, and we would have been in there. Now, granted, he could have then had the chance to Bell Galaxy Trance, so maybe doing it incorrectly to bait out the hand trap was correct, because honestly, I'd rather have Emperor get Belled than Galaxy Trance, so could have been worse. So I bring out Afterglow, and I bring out the Emperor. We go into number 90, and then we link off the Soldier and the Galaxy Photon Dragon into Soul Flare, and Soul Flare is going to go ahead and cycle back the Vanisher for next turn, and I pass on that. I have Ash in hand. I have a Vanisher, I believe. Or no, I have Summoner and Vanisher in hand, plus number 90, plus Soul Flare, and the D-Barrier set. Now, my opponent does have evenly matched, so that is going to force me to use the number 90 to grab a follow-up search of Trance, and on a new chain, Emperor will bring itself back since it did hit the grave. My opponent will then activate Terraforming. That is going to go ahead and grab Pressured Planet. And I believe this is going to go ahead and grab Unicorn. Then he's going to go ahead and special summon the Unicorn, and that is going to grab probably the best spell in the entire deck, low-key, Birth. That's going to allow him to normal summon the Fenrir without tributing, obviously. And Fenrir is going to go ahead and search a copy of Tier Cache. And this is where I decided to flip up the D-Barrier. Maybe it was a little early. Maybe I should have just, let him commit to an actual Xyz monster first, then flip up the D-Barrier. So I think that was I would think I was just a little worried about him getting into something that I, would have been like, oh, okay, this is already too late at this point. So, but either way, pardon my camera's weird exposure there, just getting really bright for some reason, but he's going to go ahead and grab a Theosis off of Pot, and then he's going to go ahead and bring out a copy of Rise Heart, banishing 3 from my deck and banishing a Unicorn from his deck. And there is a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a hot cheat, but, misplay here. My opponent summons out the Tier Cache, banishing the Theosis to add 1 back, mills 3, or mills a Unicorn, a Veiler, and a Change of Heart, and they link into Dawn or Dagger for Hire, which they actually can't do because of the Theosis restriction, which I did not know at the time. I didn't know it had a restriction on it. If it did, I didn't know about it. So now I do, right? So he's going to go ahead and pass turn there, and ending on just Tier Cash, Unicorn, and Fenrir, which honestly isn't that big of a deal. I just go and activate Galaxy Trance, and that is going to go ahead and bring out Emperor and Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. On a new chain, they're going to activate Birth to go ahead and banish 3 face down, getting rid of the Afterglow, a Wizard, and one other card. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? It honestly just doesn't matter. I'm going to go for C62 over the regular C62. And this guy can now attack 3 times in the battle phase. And it's currently unaffected by monster effects if I detach. Since it has Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon's material, I activate the effect at the start of the battle phase. It's going to go ahead and detach Emperor. Emperor will bring itself back. He gets to use Unicorn to banish one from the extra deck. And this is actually just game right here. Yeah, it's actually just game. Now, funny thing is I actually did the math wrong by 1,000 on each attack, and he got another turn. But luckily, it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, so just use a calculator, right? Don't be afraid to use a calculator. I was, and I didn't want to take up extra time, so I tried to do the math in my head. Yeah, that's why I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm not a mathematician. But yeah, actually, give him an extra turn because that was damage, enough damage to put game on board right there. But I'll just let this play out at a higher speed so you guys can see what I actually end up doing next if for some reason it wasn't game, right? If I use like a Pot of Prosperity or something. So I actually end up just going into like the Cypher package to clear the field spell and the Birth, because those are some, you know, forms of follow-up that we want to get rid of. So additional normal summon there and bring out Wizard, and then I just go for Blast Dragon. Blast Dragon brings out the Galaxy Photon Dragon, and we just like pass turn there. And I think all he does here is gets Theosis, and I think he gets Scareclaw Cash out of the deck here, just to run over Blast Dragon, because Blast Dragon's making it so everything on my field that has 2,000 more attack can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. So he runs over the Blast Dragon, and then he goes Unicorn over the Soul Flare, and rips the last number 90 out of my extra deck. And then I think he makes Big Eye and takes Cypher Blade, and then Cypher Blade pops Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. Yeah, I think that's literally all that ends up happening. In the next turn, I just literally draw for turn. And, yeah, and he detaches the Emperor, too. So I'm like, all right, we get free Emperor. And I think I draw Expedition. Yeah, so Expedition just brings out after Galaxy Brave. I didn't need to do any of this. I just go battle phase again and just, yeah, swing over the rest of his monsters, which definitely should have not, that game did not need to go on as long as it did. Again, that was completely my fault. I did the math wrong. The game should have ended like a turn or two prior. So let's take a look at game 3. All right, so here we are in game 3, the all-important game 3, and my opponent is going to opt to go first. My opening hand, I believe, is like, yeah, so we opened up pretty poor here. We have Ash Blossom, Book of Eclipse. We also have Galaxy Brave, or Galaxy Eyes Afterglow, and Photon Thrasher, and Galaxy Trance. So that is a hand. We really can't do anything with that. The only play that is available with a hand like this is to like summon the Advancer, obviously via normal summon at this point, and crash it into something, and then use Galaxy Trance to be able to go ahead and bring out the Advancer and a level 4 to go into Galaxy Photon Dragon to get a search. That is literally the only thing that this hand does, and really hoping on a top deck of something like a Small World or a Pot of Prosperity. My opponent here, as they rearrange their hand, you can see they have Ibli, Nibiru, and Impermanence. So I think they opened up also pretty poorly here. They have Book of Eclipse and what looks to maybe be a Tier Cache. Yeah, it's a Tier Cache. So they opened up not so great either. But they are going to just normal summon Ibli. And I was like, oh, so this is the deck that plays the Ibli stuff. I thought it was Sprite that played it, which would make sense, I guess, because it's level 2. But I guess Kashtira plays it. So he sets 2, passes. I go ahead and activate Book of Eclipse. And it's going to book my Ibli so I can summon, you know, things that aren't Link monsters. And then he's going to go ahead and Book of Eclipse my Advancer. And I'm thinking, you know, as I'm watching this, you know, I could have ashed that Book of Eclipse potentially. but I'm really glad I didn't do that because there's no real play that I would have had to make there had I done that. Like, it's not like I could have crashed my Advancer into his 0 attack Almirage. So I'm glad I held the Ash, let it get booked, and really the only thing I have to do there is pass. And I'm going to draw a card from his Book of Eclipse, and he's going to draw a card from my Book of Eclipse, I think. Well, actually, yeah, no, because it's not who controls the card. It's just how many cards are flipped up in the end phase, I believe. So I end up drawing an Advancer. They draw a Pot of Prosperity, which honestly, if you ask me, is a better draw than the one that I had. And then I remind them to draw for turn, which they draw into another Ibly. So they're still not out of the woods yet in terms of being playable. They go ahead and activate their Pot of Prosperity, and they only banish 3. They definitely should have banished 6. Obviously, it didn't matter either way because I had the Ash Blossom. So I guess banishing 3 low-key worked out for them because they get to use less resource from the extra deck because it wasn't going through anyways. And then they try to go for Donner, and luckily my friend catches that because they need to be 2 different attributes, or types rather. They're both cybers. Again, I've literally never read Donner for hire like once. I probably should read it. Yeah, so he goes end up linking for Linkuriboh, and they pass turn. And here we go ahead and normal summon Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon by tributing both those monsters. Activate Expedition, that's going to bring out Galaxy Eyes. And I'm like, you know what? If he doesn't have anything right now, this is going to be game, and it's going to be game in under 5 summons. We go for right into C62, which is already unable to be targeted by monster effects. Now, they do have Imperm, which is like, all right, fair enough. But we have Afterglow underneath the C62, and we detach as cost, and that is still going to trigger Afterglow to go ahead and double the attack of all numbered Xyz monsters we currently control, and bring out a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from the deck. So it is negated still, but it is at 8,000 attack. So I attack over the Linkuriboh for 77, and then over the Almirage with the Galaxy Eyes for a game. And we able to take the match there against Kashtira. So pretty cool match, a lot of cool interactions there. You can really see just how powerful C62 is. It showed up in Game 2, it showed up again in Game 3. And again, I wanted to show off the highlights of Small World in this match, and also that Galaxy Trance play where we can basically use it to act as like a pseudo Rhoda through Soul Flare Dragon if we haven't used our normal summon at certain stages in the game. So that is round 3. Let's move on and see how the rest of the tournament went. All right, so moving on, here we are in round 4. We need to be able to win this match in order to get store credit. If we lose, we will be X2, resulting in 0 store credit earned and less money donated to charity overall. So let's hop right into the match and see what we actually end up playing against. And lo and behold, it is the final boss of the tournament. This is the same opponent that we had in round 2 of week 1, still on that Dark World Hand Loop Turbo deck. And yeah, I was not super excited to see this be the deck that we would have to play against, because I just knew it was going to be an uphill battle, especially if we do not have Droll and Lockbird in our side deck, which going forward, it might just have to make its way in there. So let's go ahead and hop right into this one. And I'll be honest with you guys, the only little bit of luck I get in this match is right there when I snipe that Danger out of his hand. And he continues to go off with Thunderbird into Jackalope. And honestly, I could speed this bad boy up to 4 times speed. And I think in order just to save a little time, I will basically tell you guys what happens here in this match. We basically get hand looped. My opponent does literally full combo, and I pretty much scoop before it even is like passed over to my turn, because there's literally no point in trying to play on a top deck when he's pretty much got a pseudo Omni Negate already on board. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and, like I said, save a little time and go right into game 2, because we lose this game really, really hard. All right, so here we are in game 2. Luckily, we get the opportunity to go first here, which means we don't have to worry about getting hand looped. In the opening hand, though, it looks like I have Galaxy Soldier, Galaxy Eyes, Talents Nibiru, and one other card that I can't exactly tell what it is. It might be Afterglow Dragon, or it might be Galaxy Wizard. Yeah, I think it's Galaxy Wizard. So we commit our normal summon of Galaxy Wizard, And we're going to go ahead and tribute it off here to be able to search a copy of Galaxy 100. We then use Galaxy 100 effect to go ahead and send, and we dump off the Photon Emperor. Then we're going to activate Photon Emperor's graveyard effect to summon itself back. Activate Galaxy Soldier, discarding Galaxy Eyes to go ahead and revive Summoner. And I do want to pause right here. So this actually ended up being a pretty big mistake. One, because of the threat that I was trying to avoid wasn't a realistic one, and two, this was just the incorrect target to revive with Galaxy Summoner all around. So the threat I was trying to avoid here was Nibiru, and that was a really incorrect thing to do for two reasons. I'm already well into Nibiru territory at this point, whether I revive the already level 8 Galaxy Eyes or I revive the Galaxy Wizard for more extension, right? I'm still in Nibiru territory, so I'm not playing around Nibiru either way by bringing back the Galaxy Eyes over the Wizard. And two, my opponent is playing a Dark World Danger deck, which means they probably are not playing hand traps at all. They're playing more so board breakers, things that are live as the 6th card, and things like Lava Golem, right? So I didn't even really need to fear Nibiru at all in the first place, because odds are it's probably not in his deck. So that was a big mistake on my behalf. And had I brought back the Galaxy Wizard, I could have ended on number 38, Galaxy Eyes, and I believe Soul Flare and a rank 4. But doing it this way, I'm able to end on a much more subpar board. And I take a minute here to think about what I want to banish off my Galaxy 100, because I was just outright unsure. There are a lot of great targets in there, right? He's got Zeus, Dugares, Muckraker, Coach King, Giant Trainer, Stardew, a lot of decent one-ofs. And for some reason, I decided to banish the Graph-Fusion because I was like, you know what? Maybe I could set up the double banish on, his turn and get rid of the other one by summoning an Afterglow and detaching it. But I just completely misplayed that. And I definitely should have gotten rid of at least Muckraker, at least something that was a one-of. So we go for number 90. Then I go for Galaxy Photon Dragon here. We're going to go ahead and detach the Galaxy Summoner. And this is going to go ahead and search us any Photon or Galaxy card, or send any Photon or Galaxy card. But if I would have brought back the Wizard, I could have tributed off to like grab Trance, and then we'd still have Galaxy Eyes engraved to bring out both Galaxy Eyes and Afterglow. That way we'd get a rip from their extra deck, make number 90, and then have another rip from their extra deck next turn. So really, really unfortunate that I missed that. I think I was just, again, tunnel visioning on focusing on like trying to get to a rank 8 as fast as possible. And I think it ended up costing me. It really doesn't matter, honestly, because he has Lava Golem, and that's why I preemptively searched there off number 90, because I was expecting Lava Golem, and that's exactly what he ended up having. So he's going to go ahead and set one, activate a Danger. It's going to get sniped, and then he activates Card Destruction and ditches out not the best hand. Looks like another Lava Golem, a Grapha, and a Session. He's able to pop the Lava Golem on my field, and he activates another copy of a Session, banishing Grapha and discarding Nessie, brings out the Grapha Fusion, and then he's able to trigger the effect of Nessie to go ahead and add a Danger, and they add a copy of Chupacabra. So right now, I'm thinking, okay, his hand's probably not the greatest. Like, he doesn't have the best setup going for him right now, so we honestly might be in the clear this turn. Like, we might not actually die. End up using the Graveyard Effect of Session, discarding Chupacabra to add back a Session. Chupacabra is going to bring back Nessie. And end up linking off the Nessie and the Snake into... Yeah, they're looking into going into Muckraker, and they do go into Muckraker. So, again, this is where if I would have banished that Muckraker, it would have just been a lot better of an outcome for me. Just because that's like a one-of in their deck. They're going to discard the Salamander. That's going to bring out Lava Golem, just a free 3k beater. Attack over the Emperor, and then swing in with the Muckraker. And pass turn. And luckily, that is all they're able to do. We draw Rhoda for turn. The Rhoda is going to resolve. He's opting to not negate that, or make it, your opponent discards. Then we summon Thrasher, summon Vanisher. We go ahead and use the effect of Photon Vanisher to add Galaxy Eyes. And then here, I quickly go into... Because I was thinking about quickly going into Blast Dragon. See, we have double Wizard in hand, and I can't see what that last card is. It might still be that Nibiru in hand. So we go for Blast Dragon, we activate the effect, and they are going to choose to stop it with Grapha, discarding the Accession in their hand. And then we're just going to normal summon the Wizard and go search Galaxy Trance. And this is just going to be game outright. right here. Because we do have Galaxy Eyes Engrave, and then we can bring out Afterglow, and then this is just obviously going to lead to C62, OTK. He's got 3 monsters on field. We can attack over all of them. We're doing, we're going to double the attack of C62. So that's game 2. Relatively simple. I definitely misplayed there quite a bit in my sequencing. Bringing back Galaxy Wizard would have been way better than bringing back Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon with that summoner. But we live and learn. Let's move on and take a look at game 3. So here we are in game 3, and as you can see, I opened up what looks to be Galaxy Eyes. I know Advancers in my hand, I'm pretty sure. I think there might be a Wizard in there as well, alongside 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. And I'm not exactly sure what the other card is. But my opponent wasn't able to do the full, Giga hand loop with Silva, and we actually have a hand to start off our turn, which is really good. So yeah, I think I have Vanisher as well. Yeah, it might be Vanisher, Advancer, plus Wizard. So we open up like not half bad here. We commit the normal summon to Wizard. That's going to give us room to special summon the Vanisher, and they do decide to use the Grapha Interruption on the Vanisher, making him discard Silva, or well, we discard the Silva essentially. Our effect is making him discard Silva. So we have to put 2 cards back. Luckily, it was a really easy decision there. I put back Galaxy Eyes in the other Pot of Prosperity, and I'm thinking right now, you know what? We're in the clear. Like, he has to have something really highly impactful in the back row, and he has Dimension Barrier. So the game pretty much just ends right here. Now, I will point out something, though. Now, this is because my understanding at this point in the game was a little different than it is now. So I go ahead and, you know what? I'm going to Pot of Prosperity, and I'm just going to see what I can get, right? Maybe I can grab something that can maybe stall me a turn. And I reveal Book of Eclipse. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, you know what? Book of Eclipse could be good to stop a really strong battle phase push, because we can just set all of his big monsters. And sure, he'll draw a bunch of cards, but at least we can buy ourselves another turn. But then I was like thinking, you know what? He can just stop the Book of Eclipse with the Grapha Fusion. But then a friend of mine was quick to remind me when I was going over this, saying that, Grapha can only stop normal spells and traps, and Book of Eclipse is not that. So that little bit of a misunderstanding here kind of was making an influence on my decision as whether I should take. Like, I didn't, at the time, I didn't think taking Book of Eclipse was going to be that good. I'm like, oh, he'll just stop it, right? But I'm like, I figured I might as well take it because I think it was the highest impact card that I could potentially grab. Then I used Galaxy Wizard here to grab Photon Orbital, which I cannot do. Definitely shouldn't have done that. I should have just grabbed Galaxy Trance. So that was a mistake on my behalf. I don't know why I searched that. I think I was just flustered and wasn't paying too much attention. So I just go Battle Phase, attack over the Muckraker for a little bit of damage. And I'm going to pass turn to my opponent here. And they are going to link off into Cerberus. Cerberus is going to pop the Galaxy Photon Dragon. They're going to bring out Tsuchinoko. And curious to see what they do here. And also another thing too is that Book of Eclipse doesn't permanently lock the positions of the monsters that it sets. So if I use Book of Eclipse right now, he could literally just change the monsters back up. But that's where we would do it in battle phase, right? To make sure that, if he does flip them back up, it's really not going to matter. But, looking at it on the, reality, right? I am top decking, and he would still have Grapha flipping up during his end phase regardless, drawing a bunch of cards, and we are losing. Because literally the best card I could probably draw would be something akin to Galaxy Wizard or Galaxy Trance, and he definitely has the stop for that. So, unfortunately, D-Barrier is going to bring our chance at a 3-1 record to an end, but fair enough. I'm honestly literally considering cross-out Designator in the side with a D-Barrier, already. I mean, we can stop Nibiru, we can stop Book of Eclipse, we can stop things like the D-Barrier. We still just can't stop Lava Golem, which I did side in Gozen Match. We just did not draw that Gozen Match for the Lava Golem. So that is it for our tournament experience here in Week 2. We finished 2-2. Not bad, but definitely could, of course, be better. We just got pretty unlucky there that they had the D-Barrier. But yeah, that's it. And let's continue on with the video. Okay, let's do a little tournament recap here to round off this episode. We did go 2-2, which means no store credit for us because we need to go at least 3-1 or better to earn that. But as I stated in the first episode, I will be donating $10 of my own money to our fundraiser of choice this month, which is the Clean Air Task Force. So no credit, but $20 donated to a great cause. So I'll definitely take that every day of the week. But I want to talk about, our deck list, the things that I liked, I didn't like, and just a little brief summary on the matchups that we had while I'm still fresh, just after the tournament, and kind of talk about what ideas I have for the deck going forward as we head into week 3, where like I've said in the past, we're going to be trying to fix some of the problems that the deck is having. So round 1, we played against Blackwings, really not too much to say there. That was the only match of the night where I opened my only unplayable hand. So I think that is something we can kind of expect with this deck right now, the way that it is. Even though we've definitely made it a lot more consistent with the small worlds in the main deck, I think we should just expect one really bad unplayable hand. And that hand will probably usually involve Talons or Galaxy Brave, like it's happened already like the past 3 or 4 times that I've opened unplayable with this deck. It's just Talons and Brave. Does that mean I'm going to cut those cards? No, because they're both good in their own right. It's just very weird that it happens to always be those 2 particular cards, but I digress. We went into round 2 where we played against Branded Despia. That guy just had my number, both games 1 and game 2. Literally couldn't do anything about it. He's just better than me. Had Nibiru and a Bestial, and had Nibiru and Super Poly game 2. Didn't draw any side deck cards, didn't see Ash or Branded Fusion. What can I do, right? And then moving into the second half of the tournament in rounds 3 and 4, that's where things started to get a little bit interesting. We played against Kashtira and Dark World in round 4, the same Dark World player that we played against in round 2 of last week, my good friend Joe. He absolutely bodied us then, and he did the same thing again here in week 2. He just did it in a little bit of a different fashion. Instead of dropping Lava Golem on us, which he did flip up D-Berry, and that has got to be one of the most infuriating cards to deal with right now this format. That was kind of how our chance at a 3-1 run came to an end, was at the hands of a D-Barrier. And if it's got to be a D-Barrier, right, that's the only way they could stop the might of the Photon Galaxy, then right, so be it. This is where things get interesting. I talked about a couple of ideas that I had to potentially fix some of the problems that our deck is having. Like not being able to put up a big enough end board. Our deck really doesn't have anything super unfair going for it. And yeah, we want better end boards. I think we're fixing the consistency, right, with the small worlds and stuff like that, and Pot of Prosperity. I think that's maybe about as good as we can get consistency-wise. And for end boards, though, I thought about playing Gigantic Captain Sargus to be able to search Therion King Regulus, which can then equip Photon Orbital from the graveyard to it, or Galaxy Soldier, giving us access to an Omni Negate. And Gigantic Champion is a rank 8, just a generic rank 8. The only thing that sucks about it is that it does conflict with Galaxy Trance and Photon Sanctuary, because it is neither a Galaxy Photon monster and is not a light monster. But it's still a rank 8, so that's kind of food for thought. I might try that out on my streams this week, which would be the week of the 13th, and I think would be on, what, like the 15th and 16th of my streams would be. Link to my Twitch again down in the description. But we'll try these out maybe a little bit more. But the other interesting thing that I tried a little bit already, actually, at this point, was Artifact Durendal and Photon Time Stop, which is a new trap card that the deck got that basically says if it's destroyed by an opponent's card, a card effect, you can basically make it become the end phase. You just have to have Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon on board or have a monster that has it as material. Now that sounds pretty easy to pull off, but in the couple games that I was trying to do it, it's a lot easier said than done, which of course, right? A turn skip for a deck like this, of course it's going to be hard to pull off, but maybe it's worth giving it another try. But those are like the 2 things that I could think of that I could possibly add into this deck to make it have better end boards. Photon Galaxy having access to an Omni Negate, that's just like mind blown, right? It was kind of similar to the problem that Rikas and Avalon was having, where we could put up a wide range of interruptions for our opponent to have to deal with in different places, but we could never really assemble an Omni Negate, so evenly matched just absolutely demolished us. And you could kind of say the same thing about this deck right now. We can't put up a Trap Negate to save our lives, and evenly matched is still pretty popular. So, making Regulus could be, kind of worthwhile, right? So, we do have, like, equipping Orbital, right? It kind of reminds me of Earth Machine, too, like equipping Machina Gear Frame, and then also an Extender, right? You get the dual use out of equipping Orbital because we could send it off to Search if we haven't used its effect that turn. Or, like, use, like, Galaxy Photon Dragon to dump the Orbital to the grave, then use a Regulus to equip to it if we already draw the Regulus. So, I honestly think the Regulus version has a lot more promise than the Photon Time Stop version, because now that I'm thinking about it, Regulus could also potentially be a small world bridge too, because it is a level 8 and it is a machine. So that has some promise too, and my Starlights are collecting some dust. But yeah, those are the ideas that we have. Maybe next week I will definitely try to implement them in time for Saturday locals if the testing goes well on my stream. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you donated to the fundraiser, I cannot thank you guys enough for doing that. It is really amazing to see the progress so far. And if you cannot donate for whatever reason, don't worry about it. You can still share this video around to get more eyes on it and potentially get more people to contribute to this amazing fundraiser. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, Winterkill signing out. We'll see you in the next one. And like always, I want to give a huge thank you to our current Divine level channel members who are Misfit, HE8 Cyber, Cadillacs84, and Pony Stark. Thank you guys so much, as always, for your very kind and extremely generous support of the channel.